Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Rethinking Balance Sheets, a show where we talk about the intricacies of the balance sheets. And just to kick it off, as always, a word from the folks that support us, Nicole. Balance Sheets. I'm Roshan Thiru, and always joining me is my co-conspirator and my partner in crime, Ravindran Navaratnam from Stage 3 Capital. Ravi, welcome to the show. And every Friday, 10 a.m. in the morning, Kuala Lumpur time. I know some of you are in the US who are tuning in. So regardless of what time, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the show that talks about balance sheets. So Ravi, not many enjoy dissecting a balance sheet, but it's something you thrive on. You love looking at the intricacies of this document called the balance sheet, and enabling others to truly understand how powerful it is to look at it. So tell us what we're going to talk about today, and maybe what we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks.
Oh, thank you, Roshan. I'll just take a leaf from the Australians since we got a time problem. Just say good day, everybody. Yeah, that probably works. Yeah, good day, everyone. And that's probably the best way to greet our audience around the world. But coming back to your point is that I think yes, the balance sheet is the end result or the starting point, whichever way we like it, that you're looking at your business eventually put on a piece of paper. And we've been talking a lot about the things that which has been probably bothering a lot of people now in the age is to get financing and the funding side of the business, right? But we've also started, we'll probably go along this series and consider a lot of the different ways of financing and supporting the balance sheet going forward. But I think one of the things which is exciting when we spoke with Average in Singapore on the intangibles is, there's huge value created by, on the balance sheets in terms of intangible. The biggest companies in the world, the Googles, etc., don't have large fixed plant and machinery anymore, but they have huge value in intangibles. And we're very fortunate today to have, probably one of the smartest guys I know, and has built a business around that whole idea of intangible, but in terms of really the technology. You can't see physically the technology, but it creates huge amount of money. So I think if for all those out there who think there's a great opportunity to think about how we invest in technology, I think we've got just probably the right guy above all in today's show, Suresh.
And so we will let's bring. I'm going to bring Suresh Thiru, who's going to be joining us. And Suresh has a checkered background, a very interesting sort of background of seeping into technology and then embracing it and then thriving in it. So Suresh, tell us a bit about your journey, your story, and how you became the man you are today.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thanks, Roshan and Ravi. Ravi, thanks for the kind introduction. So just a little bit of background about myself. So I grew up here in Malaysia, and studied overseas, and then came back and went to school, fortunate enough to go to school with some of the other founders of JobStreet. So in early 2000, when I had the opportunity, got that call from Mark. Still remember that call from Mark Chang, the founder of JobStreet. I jumped on the opportunity to work with JobStreet. I was working for a major telco at that time, and the challenge for me was I've always wanted to run my own business, but never had the gumption to step out and do that myself. So here was an opportunity to maybe joined a couple of really good guys who had essentially, established a business, established a model that worked, and were looking to expand rapidly. So that was a great opportunity, I thought, to work with a bunch of like-minded people on a very interesting company with a great purpose. So I would consider myself very fortunate to have gotten that call from Mark.
And you started very, I mean, in the early days of Job Street, was a startup, right? I mean, struggling,
Yeah.
trying to make ends meet, and somehow over time, the company's values sort of grew, right? I mean, and as you got traction, as the users sort of increase, the valuation sort of increased and evolved over time, ultimately reaching a point where Seek from Australia purchased Job Street. And it became this huge organization. Talk us through that journey. I mean, how did I guess many entrepreneurs and startup leaders would want to see value creation, especially in terms of the price and of that valuation keep rocketing at an incredible pace. What was the secret to that success? I mean, was there some magic pills that you and Mark used to eat every day that enabled that valuation to skyrocket, or what was there other things that you guys were doing right that may be useful for some of our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I wish there was some magic pills that we could consume, but a lot of times it felt like we were just eating, leftover rice from last night, with, bubor or kanji or whatever, at the time to survive. I think very different from today when we were operating in early 2000, where we were fortunate to get the funds. And I think a lot of that was on the strength of Mark and his team. But I think that, the valuations there are a pale comparison to what we have today, so we didn't raise a lot of money. So there was a lot of bootstrapping. I know that, the thinking in those days that if you join a startup, you're taking a significant pay cut and then you're getting options. So that was the thinking then. That's not the thinking today. I meet people who want to work for startups who want, more money to join a startup, So there's a lot of money flushing around. People say it's hard to raise money today. I disagree compared to before. But, I think that, we had to work through a lot of challenges. So it wasn't like we knew what the answers were, but, it was a lot of trial and error. We made plenty of mistakes along the way.
Just to pick up one of the points that, Suresh, you told me, and I think that is so true. You said, I think the key word was like-minded people. I think that if there's a magic pill, or if it's not even a magic pill, it's just the basic food that you need to start going is like-minded people.
Yeah, I think we were fortunate. We were a group, we were a group of, young people who sort of, were the same age group. Many of us had gone to college together, been through that struggle, had a real passion for building a business as compared to making lots of money. I think that, I don't think there were many conversations about how much money we were going to make. But we were very passionate about sort of driving the business and the purpose, and we always measured our business in terms of the intangibles. How many users were using our system? How many users were applying for a job? How many users were getting a job? How many companies were we helping? So it was a purpose that drove us, and so in that sense, it sustained us through difficult times, because a lot of people gave up because the perception was that, we had 2 or 3 downturns. There was the .com bust, there was a SARS, there was the, Asia financial crisis. That all impacted a lot of people. But, we kept going.
I think that's the other critical word, which I think is absolutely, was the word grit. I think that's critical to business. Absolutely right. Yeah.
I remember when we were, when we were very young, and we were trying to hire some experienced staff to join us. We knew nothing about sales. We were trying to hire some sales leaders to join us, and one very, very smart, established lady, spoke to us, and she liked our business and she liked what we did. But ultimately, I think she didn't join us because, she said, you guys are a bunch of collegiate friends. I don't know how to break in. So that was good and that was bad. I mean, every strength has got some elements of weakness, but that is essentially what we were, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. And you know, we've got a couple of people joining us in the conversation. Shaji, he says 2 of my favorite people in the house. So I'm wondering which is the third one that is not so favorite. I'm suspecting Shaji he likes only 2 people here. So I'm suspecting Suresh is one of those he likes. So between me and Ravi, one of it is not his favorite. So and there's others, you know, Sashi says hi, and a couple others are saying hi. So welcome to the show, everyone. And we're talking to Suresh Thiru, who was formerly CEO of SEEKAsia, which acquired JobStreet, which Suresh was for quite a big part of his life, part of JobStreet. And Suresh, you know, talking about the different investments that JobStreet made, right? So I think one big aspect of JobStreet's success has been, you know, investing in different technological assets, and enabling yourself to become the market leader in the online recruitment space for quite some time. Talk us through that journey, and what were some of those things, and what should other companies be thinking, especially in this light of the disruptions that are happening out there, right? You know, and investments into technology, and maybe initially as you mentioned just now, you know, it may be initially a struggle, but at some point in time, it's going to potentially yield multiple fold. Was that the case with JobStreet?
I mean, I think we were quite fortunate because, you know, we had some fundamental strength in the team. I mean, in Mark, I think, you know, we had probably, in my experience, one of the nicest guys, and also, you know, likely one of the smartest product people I've ever met and worked with. You know, he's just day and night, 7/24, passionate about, you know, how product changes, how product evolves, how people use product, and he's always looking at all these other things to try and get ideas. So, you know, so we were fortunate that we had, you know, him there, and he was always focused on improving the product. So we had technology that others didn't, simply because, you know, we were focused on that. The founder was focused on that, and then we had a heavyweight in Albert running the technology. You know, so I think we built stuff that was robust, that was scalable, that was affordable. You know, we knew how to build stuff affordably. You know, so yeah, there was a time where, you know, Roshan, you will remember this, where we sold a ATS to Shell. Shell was so impressed they used it globally, you know, and they didn't have many companies from Asia providing them tools to run their global systems, and we were quite lucky in that sense. But it was the quality of the product that we had that was a key differentiator for us.
Yeah. I think it was called Siva, right, or something like that.
Yeah. Yes.
I remember that. I think I was one of the early customers also when we got it for GE.
Thank you.
But, you know, more people joining us. Pertal is joining us, says hello to everyone. Aida is joining us. Ahmad from Indonesia is tuning in. Aida from Seremban is tuning in, and Gerald Fernandez also says hi to everyone, and Zafar says, hey, I'd like to thank you all for a pretty good discussion. And the discussion is just we're just starting, right? We're just warming up, and we're going to go deeper into understanding JobStreet's success, and how they ultimately got sold to Seek, and later on, I think Suresh has a slightly different perspective, right? Not just as a founder, but also working in a bigger company, Seek, and being the CEO of his Asia division. So, you know, talk us through JobStreet. I mean, if you think about JobStreet, what was the biggest asset you would say for JobStreet? And you know, I think, you know, sometimes when I look at companies, there's a lot of gold mines that we may have, but potentially we don't see it. And so we don't leverage it, right? In your case of JobStreet, what were some of those, and how was it leveraged?
Sure, love to take that question. But before I take that question, a couple of things. One is a quick call out to Aida. Hi, Aida. I'm also from Seremban, so hi. And then
Aida, you've got a Seremban fan, right? St. Paul's, Suresh?
No.
KGV.
So,
all right,
yeah.
I'm St. Paul's guy. Okay.
Yeah. No shit. Can I leave now?
That's okay.
Yeah, no, you can stay. You're not from BI. It's okay.
Yeah, right. So the other minor correction is that I'm not a founder of JobStreet, so just let's understand that's Mark Chang. So I think that, you know, we were lucky, maybe if you look at JobStreet, one of the earliest advantages that we had was we started so early. Mark started the business in '97. So that was very early into the business. But maybe the and we had many assets with us, clearly. Capability to build technology. Okay, our determination to scale. But maybe the biggest strength that we brought, is the culture that we built. We built a culture of like-minded people who are very purpose-driven. So we didn't have we had a lot of robust discussions, but we didn't have personality clashes. We would sit in a meeting and have robust table thumping discussions, and then walk out and have lunch together. So it was a culture that we built where we were just focused on trying to figure out how can we help that lone candidate in Medan, Indonesia, find a job against all odds, 800 applicants into a single job posting. How do we get that one suitable candidate stand out, or how do we help candidates in the Philippines find a job? We asked our country managers what would they wish for themselves and their teams and their countries, and everybody came out with fantastic things. Our Philippines team was built around helping every Filipino land a job, and that's a beautiful dream to build.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
But, what I hear you, Suresh, and that's fantastic. You had all these super bright MIT guys getting together and starting a company. That's fantastic, and you have the confidence to, or at least you have the brain power or the belief in the brain power to tackle the technology issue. But if I'm starting a business, I've read about stuff, and I want to get into technology. Everybody's saying IR 4.0, this and that. But really, I'm clueless as a businessman how, I know you're certainly mentoring people around this. What would you say to them? How do I get into? We know we got to get into this game, but the problem is I don't know how to get it. I've got to get that investment on that balance sheet, that that IT and data and that that stuff, but I just don't know how to get onto it.
Yeah, so that's a perennial challenge for us. Unfortunately, we're not. We don't have a lot of deep tech talent, right? So if you go to the US, you meet people who've been working in technology for 30, 40 years because that's all they wanted to do. Here, we're growing so fast. So if you're good, you get promoted into management very fast. So you step out of the tech ladder. So it's hard to find people with deep tech talent. So I always tell them, look, if you're building a tech-based business, you've got to find a founder who's a CTO who can run that for you. Otherwise, at some point, they're going to be, scalability issues, cost issues, speed issues, and yeah, it's hard. It's a hard thing. People look at services and they go, wow, I want to replicate this. They don't know the depth behind it. Roshan, you've built Nicole. People look at that and say, "Yeah, I want to replicate that." It's deep. It's deep. It's difficult. It's a lot more than the UI that you see.
Yeah, absolutely.
But saying that, if I am trying to get into, just to expand this discussion a little bit and to take it into the next step, you talked about a CTO. This is stuff that now can exist outside Malaysia or outside Southeast Asia, or you could get a guy working for you from perhaps India and Bangalore or wherever, helping you. Is that something which you think feasible? But of course, you're tight on money as as SME or a small company, and to start making this investment. The second part of that question would be: there's a hell of a lot of noise. Tons of people come and tell you, hey, why did you try this product? This is the way to do it. That's the way to do it. How do you come to landings on these things?
Yeah, so two things. And I know a startup that I'm talking to right now, that essentially is building things in Malaysia, selling to customers predominantly in Australia, but their developers are sitting in Sri Lanka and Nepal.
Fantastic. Yeah.
right? So they seem to have figured it out, but it's a hard one, right? So so I'm like super curious. How do you find somebody in Nepal? And they says, well, this person was working for us and then decided to go home. When COVID happened, they were concerned, so they went home. So they went to Nepal, and then so they are building a team in Nepal. But you have that core one person that you can trust to run it, and then they found somebody else in Sri Lanka, and that person's doing work for them. But I mean, if you're looking for a partner, clearly you can find a partner overseas. But again, how do you then incorporate that partner into your team culturally, because they're not sitting next to you, and if you don't know somebody, how do you make them into your partner?
Trust them. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Interesting when you mentioned Nepal. I think most people think of Nepal, they think Gurkhas and Sherpas. Yeah, but I had another client of mine who said that, and he chose. It's interesting his thought process why he chose Nepal over India. He said the trouble with the guys from India, and no offense to anybody, was they were just getting bought up by the next guy, and they were moving from one place, and they got a tremendous amount of stability finding this gem in Nepal. So this is a second story I've heard along these lines.
Yeah, the market I mean, I didn't mention India because the market in India is so hot, right? If they're any good, they're probably not working for somebody else.
Yeah, they're working for you.
True.
That's right.
I want to zoom in a little bit back on the job street. Some of the maneuvers that you did. I mean, the early 2000s, there was this bubble, right? The .com bubble burst, and you mentioned that you didn't get too much funding in the early stages, right? But you did manage to secure investors, at different stages in your company, including post bubble, right? Where it was probably a very tough time to be able to secure investors. How did you manage to maneuver that piece, that part of time? Because it was really a tough time for at least for most tech companies.
Yeah, I think that we had two good rounds of investments. If you look at those investments compared to what people are doing today, clearly you would think, oh, that wasn't a great valuation. But obviously, different times and different periods. So we got the first round, which we used to expand into Singapore and Philippines, and that was good, and we had a bit of a track record, and then we got a bit more to expand into India. So we had some success to show, so people came in the second round and they were happy to invest with us. And I think we were cautious enough to raise money at a reasonable valuation. So I think everybody had a happy exit. But we also kept cost very low, and we sort of had a more gradual organic growth as compared to sort of that rapid growth and rapid investments, that people are seeing today. Today, you see people growing very fast, which is fantastic, but they're also making huge investments.
Right. And zooming in on the cash flow a little bit, I mean, or the balance sheet a little bit, your cash seemed to be, and this is citing public records that's available, JobStreet seemed to always maintain some sort of a healthy cash at hand. So I think one of the things you talked about is the cost management piece of it, but what else what was the thinking there? Like you said, many people today disregard, I mean, it's really about burning cash. I mean, you hear statements like that, burn through the cash and so on and so forth. But JobStreet had this tendency of always having cash. I mean, talk us through that thinking, and how did you manage to do that?
I mean, I think we had a great business model in that, the moment we broke even, the business model is very scalable, right? So we could scale quickly without adding a lot more cost, because it was all technology driven, right? So that was one. I mean, the other thing is that we built good trust with our customers, so people were happy to buy from us, right? So people bought 6-month packages, 1-year packages. So we collected their money up front, so we had good cash flow, right? We also gave people a discount to prepay us, so that was close to zero. So yeah, we owed our customers lots of money because we sold them 1-year packages and collected up front.
Well, that's amazing. Negative working capital. A lot of IT companies have been successful. I think Dell was the pioneer to that, in a great way. Negative working capital. Well, we didn't think we'll hear about negative working capital on the balance sheet from a techie guy, but here you never know which gem comes around, Roshan.
Yeah. You see, we did that, but again, we never realized that it's called negative working capital. So that's the first time I'm hearing that. You need the finance guy
to tell you that.
Yeah. Of course, we had a great finance guy in our team, and Greg as well. So
yeah. Just coming back, I mean, I used to run the tech at CIO at Bursa, but I can tell you, it's one thing to sit in a large corporation which is flush with cash and you can make tech bets and do stuff right. But I'm just wondering, again, coming back to this, if I'm going, and you pointed something very correct, because the great thing about tech, it's scalable, right? If you get it right, you make that 1 million investment, produces the first 100,000 ringgit of revenue or 200,000 ringgit of revenue. But the next 200,000 revenue will probably not need, another million in fixed assets, as compared to if you're going to get you're manufacturing something with employees, and it'll be just a direct cost and you need to scale up. But the problem here is that when I made that first million bet, there's a good chance of getting it wrong. Yeah, and I've seen that happen, right? And if you don't spend, you're damned. If you do spend and you get it wrong, you burn through the cash, just like Roshan said. Tell us how we could possibly think about mitigating these risks. Is it this one of the key reasons you're looking for equity capital and selling down a bit of the company every time?
I mean, I think too, that whole process of managing your tech is very complex and very difficult. People come to me and say, you need this tool or you need that system. I would have no idea to evaluate it.
Yeah.
If two people come to me and they're selling the same thing, and one person selling it for 10 ringgit and the other person is selling it for 100 ringgit, I would have no idea to figure out which one I need. So it's about having somebody in your team who can make those calls and make those good calls. I mean, it's a difficult one. Sometimes, if I'm a civil engineer, I'm building a bridge. I gotta build a safety factor of 3 or 5. So I gotta put more steel in there. I gotta put high quality steel in there. Because I don't want that bridge to collapse. I mean, everybody in the world is talking about this building in Miami that collapsed, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm building something like that, I'm gonna ramp up the cost. I'm not gonna take the risk, But if I'm building software, right, and if I'm smart and savvy, and if I have good confidence in the team, I can take considerable risk, right? I can scale that appropriately, right? I can use the cheapest material and then scale it quickly instead of building a behemoth and then finding out this is not what customers want, or I built something too expensive and I can't pay it off. So it's about getting the right person to make those calls for you.
And I think, Suresh, your point about having depth, that technology depth, talent with depth. I think that's a very, very pertinent point, because I think sometimes we jump into this technology game thinking it's a no-brainer, and then you get burnt along the way, not having the right sort of depth to understand issues and navigate the challenges that tech brings along, in the journey, right?
Yeah, everybody looks at the UI and goes, I can't build this. You know what I mean? Look at that. True. Look at the Grab app. How difficult does it look? I mean, they've spent millions and millions on it, right? Not billions. Yeah. Right. And people go, oh, I'm going to build this and I'm going to replicate it. Okay, good luck.
just like every other platform, right? Netflix and so on and so forth. We're going to take a short, a 30-second break, and we'll be right back. We're still going to talk to Suresh. We're going to go deeper into some of his new life, right? As a mentor and as an inspiration to many of the other startups. But we'll take a quick 30-second break, and we'll be right back here on Rethinking Balance Sheets.
Jackie 你有冇聽啲咧叫 app 叫 Nicole 咯 ？Nicole 其實話唔是啦，我教你個 app 啦嘛。 你看啲你講你看，伊加了後真正係 article、podcast、courses 嘅啊。我教你講啊，你變好名，你好名，
愛好名啊，定啲
你愛趁你無？
吞這類咯。
啊，所以啊，你特別on call，真係你讀了，你看誒 article 嘅了，讀了，你變真高嘅，知無？
有無？
誒，我看啲有影，你看啲 article 看按照好名，按照趁這類，哇！呀，你講他，
你一日看好了嘛，真來就高。
有啦，教你講了嘛，你咪聽，當見你特別去看，特別看個了，
讀個了，你講嘅這個先個了，我先。
OK，好，你先好嚟。
Welcome back to Rethinking Balance Sheet. I'm here with Ravindran Navaratnam, and joining us today is our special guest Suresh Thiru, who was previously the CEO of SEEKAsia and also with JobStreet for many years. Ravi, you were asking, you wanted to ask Suresh a very tough, challenging question, right?
No, I don't think anything I could ask Suresh is going to be tough.
Except maybe some football.
Except like who's going to win the Euro 2020. He's already said he's not going to talk about that. That would have been the tough question, right? But coming back to this, I think
I'm with Ukraine. I'm with Ukraine.
Okay, see, out of the box thinking there from Suresh. Well done, Suresh. Anyway, coming back to this thing, I think I think a lot of people are going to have some challenges, and I really like to hear about your mentoring stuff as quickly as possible. But perhaps a final thought on this, making this technology bets. I think if I heard you correctly, it's probably, and you said about depth, I think there are 2 points I would say. One is that it's perhaps instead of spending $100 in one big bang, it probably is better to spend 5 bets or 20. That's probably what I'm starting to hear from you a little bit. And I think the other thing is when you talk about depth of stuff, whether anybody can seriously know depth right at the outset, or things evolve when we spend on technology. We say, yes, we're going down this journey. Let's spend and continue to spend in that journey. Of course, at some point there may be a cut loss that's required. Do you have any thoughts to what I've just put across?
I mean, those are really hard questions, Yeah. And I'm not sure if there's a formula for there's a general formula that I could throw out. I mean, if you're building stuff for Bursa, then you want something really robust. So you're not going to take any chances. So I'm not sure how all those companies that are investing in fintech are thinking about this, right? Because you just need one data lead to bring your company down.
Right.
But if you're in the general consumer base,
service
right?
base,
and you're selling stuff that people like to use, but if it's down for 2 hours, it's not great, but it's not the end of the road, right?
Yeah.
Then you just need to figure out, how you want to make that, affordable and scalable.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about startups is that, a lot of times I run into very smart people, doing startups, and then I ask them, who are your partners? And they actually don't have any partners, So they've been running a business and they're doing a startup, and they essentially don't have any partners, which I find mentally challenging, like how are you going to get all this work done? There's so many things to do. And then they say, no, I hired a good CTO. Okay. Does your CTO have some ESOS? How tied in is your CTO? And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, sometimes they have little, sometimes they have a lot. So it's a hard one. I think that, you need a team to get stuff going fast, and to invest in the long term. You want to build tech that it's going to be around for the next 3 to 5 years. How do you do that? It's very difficult, and it depends on what product you're developing, and at what stage you evolve into. I mean, if you get to the point like we did, where we were building stuff and selling stuff to Shell globally, then it needs to be rock solid, and you got to. When I know we learned a lot when we started selling to Shell, because they said, hey, you need all this backup in place, you need this redundancy in place.
Correct.
And another funny thing about Shell is they're a great customer because they're not just going to ask us to do stuff, but they're willing to pay for it. So they not only taught us, but they paid for a lot of our investments that helped us scale. They were a fantastic customer.
Yeah. And one of the things I remember, I did work for Shell Treasury when I was in PwC Consulting. And one of the key things, the Norwegian gentleman was a finance director at the time. He says, he never delays payment to his customers because, because he can borrow cheaper than Maybank. He's AAA. Maybank is only single A, right? It doesn't make sense. You rather have good suppliers, not customers, suppliers. And he always said, we don't drag out the 30 days, the 60 days stuff. Yeah. But then there's other MNCs which think exactly the opposite, and the negative working capital cycle is their core business anyway. Yeah.
No, I remember. I think that at JobStreet we paid our customers early. We paid them early. We paid our staff early as well. We paid our staff on the 22nd or the 23rd of every month. So that's like, hey, we didn't pay them well, but we paid them early.
There you go. That's another best practice.
Think about it, right? This is culture, right? So you say negative working capital, right? You want to pay your vendors early to make them happy, right? Pay your staff early, make them happy, man.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost you more to pay your staff early.
That's right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
I know, but some businessmen like to see the cash in the bank account a little longer.
And that's
not the balance sheet. Yeah, that's not the value of the company. Sorry.
I once interviewed a young lady, right? And she, I said, why do you think you want to leave your current company? She says, well, the boss walked into the office the other day and he told all of them loudly that his salary is more than all of them put together.
How to win friends and so forth.
So I said, yes, I will hire these people because I want to hire people who've been through hardship, So when they come, they're going to go like, oh, it doesn't take much to make them happy. They're going to work their butt off,
Yeah.
That's not a very bright boss anyway.
Well, I hired another lady. Telling you a pattern. If you hear that I hire a lot of ladies, it's a bit of a pattern. I hired another lady, and she said, well, I lost my. I asked her, why are you leaving? And she says, well, I haven't gotten paid for the last 2-3 months. And here was a really, really outstanding salesperson who hadn't been paid for the last 2 months. So I said, you sit here and I'll be back. And in half an hour, I was back with an offer letter.
Yep.
And she was so taken aback. She didn't know what to say. She said, I'll have to call my husband and talk about it. And I said, you do that. Well, let me know tomorrow. When can you start? And in fact, these two ladies, grew from like salespeople to like leaders in the organizations very quickly.
Yep.
And so that's simple things, not rocket science.
Yeah. And I mean, you're right. I mean, simple things actually go a long way when it comes to employees. We got a couple more people joining in. We've got LinkedIn user says hi to you, Suresh. Apparently, you were once his boss. Nice to see you, or maybe still is. Good morning from Sita Lakshmi. Also, and I think somebody else says wow to your stories. Let's talk about this new journey of your life. As you've been in the C-suite for a long time. You've kind of transitioned out, and today you are mentoring young entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurs who have ambition to be like you and be like JobStreet to some extent. What's driving or fueling this part of your life at this point in time, in terms of mentoring startups and young ones? And what sort of advice would you be imparting to these young folks at this point in time?
Yeah, so the last couple of years have been challenging for me, given the workload at the office, the workload at home. So I decided to retire. Retire. At 56 is early. So I want to gainfully, use my time. So I thought, I can find something to do maybe 3 days a week to keep me busy. And the rest of the time I could spend, with the family or doing other things, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, over the years, I haven't really, besides sports, haven't really developed any hobbies. So there isn't much that I could do outside hobbies that take up my time. I'm not like a guy who can watch TV for many hours or whatever. So I like gardening, as you can see the plants in the background, but I quickly realized that I could, hire a gardener for 100 ringgit and get everything outsourced. I just have to give him instructions. So there isn't much work to do there. So I thought I'll work with startups because it's, I enjoy talking to people and, and I enjoy working with people, so I thought, yeah, that'll keep me busy. So I'm doing some of that right now. So it's kind of nice because I get to pick and choose who I'm working with. So I try to work with people I like, who've got a great purpose. Yeah. So.
And what do you do with them? When you say you spend time with them, advise them, and what sort of input are you providing them? Is it in terms of steering their organization, or do you get hands-on involved in these companies?
So it differs. In some of the startups, I'm providing advice, like in terms of strategy, prioritization, growth, org structure, talent, stuff like that. Sometimes I get involved a little bit on sort of product market fit and go to market type stuff. So it differs, but it generally evolves around that. I'm spending 1 day a week with an Australian company called Go1. They are the world's largest learning aggregator, and they are expanding into Southeast Asia. So I'm working with them. They've got a great purpose of empowering people to have access to thousands and thousands of online learning programs. So they're very scalable, very affordable. So I'm working with them 1 day a week. The others I work a few hours a week, so it just kind of keeps me busy.
Okay, and how? Do you say you pick them up? You decide which one. How do you screen for them, or they just come and approach you and you kind of connect and see if it fits and take them on?
So it's a combination. Sometimes I approach people. Sometimes people approach me. So yeah, we chat. And if I think they've got a great purpose and they think they can benefit from the relationship, and I feel that if I work with somebody, I need to learn something from them as well. If they've got a great purpose, and I have a bias. I think I think diversity is important. So I try to work with women entrepreneurs. I try to work with minority entrepreneurs. So I think diversity is important. So I have a bias there. I have a strong bias to purpose. People are doing good things. I want to contribute. Asghari and I invested in a company called Scholarships to You, and what they do is they aggregate scholarships and offer this to young students. So I think it's fantastic. So it's a great purpose there.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to zoom in on one more piece, but of course, we've got people from all over the world joining us. I think Julio, I think South America, unless he's woke up really early in Europe. Welcome, Julio, and of course, Tena says hi to all of us. Suresh, one of the things is, and this question, I guess, is applicable to a lot of SME leaders and also startup leaders, is, with all the disruption and all the significant level of disruption, not just with COVID, right? Also with digital disruptions and all the different permutations that are happening all over the world, right? What should we be doing and thinking, and how should we be managing, all these transition and changes that are happening around us?
Yeah, I think that, again, running a business today is very, very difficult, right? Because of the, level of globalization, the level of competition, the speed of change. You wouldn't you wouldn't be surprised, right? Even a leading organization like Seek is always thinking about how they need to evolve, right? So if Seek's thinking like that, what about all the other organizations? It doesn't matter whether you're a bank or an insurance company or an airline. Everybody's facing disruption today. So the challenge is, how do you keep up with that pace? How do you get your organization to continuously change, and move faster and faster? Speed of execution and level of change right now is at levels unprecedented.
Yep.
I mean, my son is going to go study overseas, and he's already decided which bank he's going to open over there. Right?
Which bank is going to open? Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've never heard of that name. It's called Mundo or something like that. I mean,
community bank maybe.
No, it's an online bank.
It's online bank. Yeah.
Right. And I'm thinking who would want to go to a bank called Mundo? But,
I was about to work for a firm called Monday.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a big one. That's a huge one. You should have worked for them.
No, I they didn't call it Monday. It went to IBM, and I think I have my strong reservations on that deal anyway. Okay, cool. And I'm glad I never joined it. That's my personal view. But coming back to this, Suresh, I think when you talked about disruption, and I think I would certainly like to have a chat with you offline, is that there's also people like you not just on startups. I think there's also a value where people like you, Asghari and all, can come in. Is one of the things that we are looking at is that when you go through a cycle and a downturn and the company's gone into decline, it also needs to be reinvented. And a lot of the culture and the things that you were talking, as the startup phase, needs to be rediscovered when you're in distress and you're coming out of it. Have you had any thoughts about helping, in that segment to help reposition companies, as they restart their life rather than, born again as opposed to being born?
Yeah, I think that would be an interesting challenge, right? So, I haven't really thought about it, and given my background, I don't have a lot of exposure to big companies, so I don't know who would need help or who would approach me. But I surely think a turnaround situation is very challenging and exciting at the same time.
Tremendous.
Yeah. And Ravi, just to close out this segment, I mean, as you listen to Suresh and as you ponder some of the insights from him, maybe you can give us your final thoughts and summarize some of the key insights that our viewers would benefit from this dialogue we've had with Suresh.
Okay. I think generally for the viewers and for myself, as a CIO, and Suresh talked about, hit it on the nail on the technology side. I think it's horses for courses. That's really what he said. It's not the type of stuff I built. Building, a fit for purpose kind of technology. How do you make those investments? I think he covered some of the ideas on the CTO, but I think it's not something we're going to answer here today easily. That will be the key thing. But I just to share my thought is that, he got in the partner with the CTO, and you got somebody who's good and will be part of the business for a long time. I hear this team quite a bit. I've heard from other startup companies that they've managed to get the CTO, and he's been a great partner in the business. I think that's one of the things that anybody in business today ought to be thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of comments from our guests. Hi guys, and hi Suresh. Awesome stories to set the right backdrop for investment tech. Do say hi to Asghari from the Palladium Group as well. This from David Leo, and of course Gloria Gomez, who says, "I like the fact that the purpose of the startup is what Suresh is looking at to contribute his expertise." So to this comments rolling, and Suresh, I think just to wrap it up, love to hear your sort of final thoughts and any advice or any nuggets of wisdom that you want to impart to all of us as we wrap up this segment of Rethinking Balance Sheet.
Firstly, thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed the conversation. So I think that there is we live in an exciting time right now. Exciting in the sense that there's a lot of innovation, plenty of innovation. There is contrary to popular belief, I would say there's plenty of money to fund startups, and there are plenty of enthusiastic people who want to work in startups. So I mean, we haven't seen a better time for startups, I think, in a long time. So if you're thinking of ideas, I would encourage you to pursue them. But you gotta plunge right in. You can't, you can't do it half-heartedly. It's something you need to plunge right in. It's something I'd encourage people to do, particularly young people. I'm seeing a lot of young people with excellent ideas, a lot of gumption to just get out there and take on the world, take on the big companies. So I encourage that. And if you work in a startup, and understand that startups can fail, after 2-3 years, and if it fails, that doesn't mean that you haven't done a tremendous amount for your CV. You've added so much value to your CV. So after that, you can do other things. It's not a lot of people have this fear. I would say I'd like to take that away.
Yep. Fantastic. And for those of you who want to reach out to, you've got a good startup, Suresh, Suresh as your mentor. There's he's shared his little email out there. So here's opportunity to get in touch with Suresh and potentially get him on as your mentor. So thank you everyone for being part of this exciting. Suresh, really appreciate your wonderful wisdom,
Thanks,
your wonderful insight, and Ravi. We're gonna wrap up with a quick little video and showcase a final another new technology called Happily. So goodbye everyone. Have a great weekend. Have a great Friday, and just a little tech that may be interesting for you called Happily. Goodbye.
Thanks.